Alright, welcome guys. This might be a little boring and sometimes gets a little technical. I totally understand if you don't want to watch it, but thought somebody out there might be interested in it, so I decided to do this little walkthrough on what I did. Here is Vector Sigma's original track, which I used almost nothing of, so technically you can't really call this a restoration. It's, as Zab put it, it's more of a reconstruction. I took the same track that he more than likely used, which is this, and I'll play it for you in a second, and use it to create our track. So take a listen to it. And obviously it's pretty messy there. So what I do is I open up a new project here, and I copy just the first part of that. So we can take a listen to that. Still really messy with all these rocks here, and that's nothing that the RX4 can get rid of. It's just not possible. The sound is way too prominent and dominating the music. And I can lessen it, but I can't make it sound the way I did in the end result video. So how did I do that? Went there a little too far. So if you look here, see the difference here? If you take this, I'll put it on repeat. You can hear the bit of the rumble or the rocks there. I did something called deconstruct, which analyzes tonal sound and a non-tonal sound, and it tries to separate them. Works really well with lower frequencies, doesn't work out too good with the higher frequencies. So I did that and created, and it's much better without the rock falling sound is not quite as dominant. And I did the same thing for here. So before it sounded like this, and after, not perfect, but much better. And I started finding sections in here that were perfect without that rock sound and started copying and pasting them. And then I added on a new part here, and I did something called pitch shifting, which is the first section here is a half step lower than this section here musically. So for example, if this was in the key of B, these would be A flat, a half step lower. So now the B here I totally reconstructed and made it pretty clean. So I took the B, copied it over here, went to the pitch shifter, and it gives me the option to pitch shift by semitones. That's a half step, a semitone. I go down -1/2 step, and what it did is changes everything in the key of the B to an A flat. And I copy that and paste it over here. This is a very simplified version, but you can see right there, see how that went down? So originally it sounded like this. After I pitch shifted it, and this copies the exact same that's here that we can't get to because of all the rocks rumbling. So then you see I pasted it over there, and it sounds like this now. See how uneven and inconsistent it is though? It's like, 75% there, but we still need to work on it. So can't remember if that's what I did next, but I started changing the volume. You can see me manipulating the gain here, which is basically volume or loudness. it's too loud in these particular frequencies, so I lowered them so it'd match closer to the material that comes after it. And what did I do next? Sorry, this is like 2.5, 3 weeks ago when I started this, so I can't quite remember what I did. So I had that initial part, and then I added on the rest of it. And I started doing the same thing, pitch shifting it for the notes that were clean. And then in here, this is where the footsteps are still pretty prominent. You can hear that stomping. So I had to get rid of each of those. Now if you look at the time here, look at this right here. So we've got 6 seconds to 7 seconds. It's only a 1 second span of time right here. And I'm operating within a very, very small period of that second. So like, you know, a tenth of a second, maybe a little more than that. And I'm trying to erase it. And sometimes when you erase it, it doesn't always sound that good. But you can't listen to just a tenth of a second and determine whether it's fixed or not. Sometimes you have to go through and try to restore all of this, then go back after maybe a half hour, listen to the whole thing, and determine if it sounds good or not. Because the problem with the RX4, and this is not just the RX4, this is restoration in general, it's easy to remove the offending audio artifacts, whatever you want to call them, but a lot of times it introduces new ones that you don't want as well. And obviously that's not the goal here, is to try to get as natural as sounding as possible. And that can be pretty difficult. So you can see here things start to clean up. I think I was going back here. I'm pasting, you can see like right in here, very, I'll magnify it. I'm doing some pasting here. I'm just trying to smooth these out because I remember when I was doing this, as it goes, I felt like there was a gap in between each step, and it sounded very robotic. It was not natural at all. So I would go in here and take like literally 100th of a second and smooth it over so that each step would sound better as it went from one into the next. So it went A, B, A, B, A, B, and it would go back and forth really smoothly. Again, something I had to do a lot of and didn't know if it was going to work until I, spent about a half hour on it. And fortunately, it did work. So I went through a lot of doing that. Pretty boring stuff. You can see the marker here. This is where it is on the timeline. Okay. So then I started coming down here and doing, let's zoom out a little. I started working out stuff over here as well. Probably doing more pitch shifting. Yep, see there's a higher one. And the interesting thing about pitch shifting is the more you move away from the fundamental note you're pitch shifting, the weirder it starts sounding. So moving a half step up, down, no problem at all. Even a few 3 to 4 half steps, not too bad. And it depends on the material, but sometimes when you get to 4 or 5 half steps away, it starts sounding pretty weird, kind of metallic sounding. It sounds really unnatural. And that's something that most software can't beat. If there's technology out there, I don't know of it, but there's ways to work around that though. So let's go back to what I was doing here. And what was I doing here? So I'm taking very small pieces, copying it from other places, pitch shifting it, gluing them in, pasting back and forth. Wish I could have done like a record everything I did and do a time lapse. But I think a 40-hour time lapse would be pretty exhausting for you guys. And I don't have the hard drive space on my computer to do that. Going through getting rid of all those footsteps. Just see what it sounds like right now, just this one section. Yep, got rid of it. That sounds good. And I'm slowly making my way getting rid of this giant footstep here. And just going through. And I don't remember exactly what I was doing here. But you can see it slowly disappearing. I remember having some problems with this. You see this goes over here all the time. It means I'm working on the side over here and I'm experimenting and pulling it back over, back into the theme. Great thing about this right here, it lets you redo and undo and all that. So if you don't like what you're doing, you just go back. Very simple. They give you the option of doing A/B comparisons before you finalize something. This is, I think, a symbol right here that's kind of noisy sound, and I'm trying to clean it up. I don't remember what I did there. Looks like I got rid of all the symbols there. Why did I do that? That sounds horrible. I think I actually replaced a symbol in there to get the final one. Yeah, I think I came back to that. This was really rough too. This had this weird buzzing noise that I could not get rid of. Took me forever to work on. Finally end up getting it though, and I know I'm skipping over it because I'm trying to get to the quote-unquote good part. Oh, see, I just put the symbol back right there. How did I do that? Sounds a little better. Still sounds a little weird though. And okay, I guess I'm back over here now. Oh, I know. So this is where the fun part starts. So we've got this part which is pretty much untouched. It sounds great. So that I call it the staircase motif. So this is blocked by Megatron's fusion cannon, which is just ridiculously loud. And the only clear one I think I had was this one in here. I had to take just that one and I placed it over here. And then I had to double it and glue them together. And I kept working on it to make them sound natural together. And then I started pitch shifting them. And let's zoom out a little bit here. And I started doing that for each of them, going back. And you start seeing like the effect here. So it sounds like this. And slowly but surely it's getting better. So you see me working in the corner up here, experimenting. And I thought I knew what I was doing, but something occurred to me. So what happens is I got a program with a leftover Kickstarter money. Thank you guys very much. It was like it's like $39, and what it does is it takes all the audio out of a 5.1 DVD and it splits it into 6 different tracks. So I decided to listen to this portion and transport to Oblivion. This is where it comes from. And one of the tracks is dialogue only. And in that dialogue only. In the background, I could barely hear some music. So I turned it up as loud as I could go. It was really noisy, but I could hear music in the background, this part here, and it had no sound effects. And I extracted that, and I can show you what that sounded like. I think this is it right here. So this loud stuff here is Megatron's voice. It's super loud. Now listen to this. So you can hear, before each staircase motif, that you hear a timpani hit combined with a brass blast or a horn blast. So it says dun 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 dun, and it keeps going up like that. So this is where that initial hit is. So this is great because it showed me exactly what the original should have been like. No sound effects in here to block it. But this is not restorable here. This is just beyond. This is so noisy in here. Nothing can make this sound decent. But I just used this as a reference, which was great. So the point became I could get some timpani. There is a lot of it spread throughout the Transformer series. And I did probably 2 to 3 hours of just A to B comparisons, listening to this timpani, listening to the tone and the timbre of it, and searching for a replacement. And I found a replacement which I thought was really good. Then it became the horn blast. How do I duplicate the horn blast? And I think I told you guys a while back, I'm a huge Godzilla fan, and possibly even a bigger fan of the music. And the music's done by this Japanese composer by the name of Akira Ifukube. He's creates some of the most violent symphonic music you'll ever hear, and he has no shortage of those brass / horn blasts. So I started going through my Godzilla CDs and trying to figure out which sounded closest to what you just heard there. Now, if I go here, where did I have that? Yeah, so here's let's put this in here. If you're familiar with Rodan, the giant pterodactyl that Godzilla occasionally fights, I actually took his theme and I'll play it for you. That's real aggressive stuff. We don't need it to be that aggressive. But I took the lowest note, which is this. And I simply copied that into, where is it? Rodan. And I started pitch shifting it, and I started playing with it, making it less aggressive. So what I can do in here is, instead of replacing the sound, I can take a timpani, put it on top of the brass blast, and I can copy the whole thing and put it back in. So I kept doing this over and over, and I would A-B that reference track here. And I used pitch shifting again, and that's how I was able to put the sounds in there. So let's see when I started doing that. Comes a point where I start erasing, yeah, like right there. So it sounds like this. I started racing slowly and started making it echo. And then I would measure. I'd go back here. And so for example, before the staircase motif starts, there is 329ths of a second of this symphony / brass blast. So I'd measure it out and then go back here and I would count off, for example, do 329. I'd measure it out and I'd put markers up here, which you can, and it can be very accurate placement. And that's basically what I did. What am I doing here? I don't remember. Looks like I'm playing on the side. I'll move faster. I did lots of defining here. Oh, so there's the first one I input right there. So this is what it sounded like. And then like this. I put a symbol in there too. I defined symbols that sound like they made sense. And the great thing about the RX4 is instead of replacing all this, I can just lay it on top of it. It's called mix. It's a mix function. I just take the copied material and mix it in there. Can't remember what I was doing here. I started working on the ending piece. But this really frustrated me because I couldn't get rid of the ending. Because I had this horrible wind sound. I'll show you how to replace that later. I think I go back to the staircase motif. I was experimenting on the end here, doing tons of stuff. Never was quite happy with it. Okay, and there you can see the addition of the horn blast. I made this one purposely less aggressive because it mimics the reference material. I wanted to make it as accurate as possible. You don't start really hearing the grinding of the horns until you get into the second and third time it goes up. That became closer to what you heard on the YouTube. And so on. And did I do anything else here? See, I did not like that, what I did there. And it's showing that I stopped there. I think I copied everything back over here. And what I ended up doing was, I didn't like that kind of sound, and it cut off. So I figured out whatever note this was here that was dominant. I think it was like F sharp. And then I started going through all my Transformers material. They had a kind of where everyone stopped and there was a bit of an echo after. And I started feeling out which one was most appropriate for this ending here. And I found one. I pitch shifted the ending of it so it matched the F sharp, and I glued it into here, and then I spent some time kind of feathering it in so you couldn't hear the difference. And it came out pretty nice. And I was happy with it. And that's about it. There was at one point where I realized that I made the staircase motif too short. It was like a very like it was supposed to be like 7.5 seconds long, and I made it 7 seconds long. It was slightly faster than it should have been. So I had to go back and do everything again and slowly expand it out because I wanted that accuracy, and I did it. So mathematically, I set everything in place. yeah, I'm really happy the way it came out. Then I didn't show you, but I added in like there's symbols here in the beginning that wasn't there when I originally did it. I think I'm gonna get rid of that noise up there. I forgot to do that. But that's basically it. That's how I did it, and it took me about 40 hours to do this, about over 3 weeks, I'd say. There's over hundreds of commands here, but there's a lot more than that because, for example, if I'm going down here working on something, and then and then I stop, and I start doing a whole mix of new things, and say I don't like it, I go back to the point before I started that, and then I try something new. It erases everything I did before that. So there could be up to about 1,000 different maneuvers in here. But in the end, it was all worth it. There was nothing I regret about it, and I'm glad I waited to the very end, because I think I have about 470 hours working on this thing now. And if I had done this in the beginning, I don't think I could have got this kind of result. So I'm really glad I waited to the end. And hope I didn't put you to sleep. And see you in the next Kickstarter update. Thank you, guys.